terminal.
Alright, the chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantis.
Water towers can fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Fighting outside of feed off. Bring in, let's feed off. Off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of NSF Live, our little weekly show where we like to talk about all the space stuff. This week, we're not focusing on one specific thing. We like to cover as much as we can in roughly an hour and a half. Let us know how we're sounding real quick because we want to have your questions. Make sure you remember to tag at NASASpaceflight in the chat, and I'm going to give you a rundown so that you can start putting in questions that pertain to what we're going to talk about. We've got Axiom 1 returning. We've got Crew 4, Starlink, the Angara launch, the BE4 engines. We've got James Webb, and of course, Starship. So start getting your questions in the chat, and we will try to queue them up and bring them up whenever we are talking about whichever topic. Joining me today, we have Mr. Ian Atkinson over here. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Happy to be here for another exciting episode of NSF Live.
And on the other side, we have Mr. Adrian Beil. How's it going, Adrian?
Going awesome. Glad to be back here.
Yeah. And we've had a pretty good week this week. We had a crew launch. We had some crew return. We had, of course, the Starlink launch that broke a bunch of records. We'll get into that. But let's start out by talking about a certain crew that got some free days up on the space station. What was the plan? They were supposed to be there for like 8 days, and they ended up being there how long?
Yeah, so they almost pretty much doubled their stay on the station. They were originally supposed to be up there for about a week, but eventually, because of weather delays after weather delay after weather delay, the undocking and landing date just kept getting pushed back and pushed back. So they actually got almost double their time. Now, again, they don't get that time relief for free because NASA does charge on a day-by-day basis for use of the station's resources like power, life support, air, things like that.
I was going to ask if we knew anything about that, like because the consumables are not free. And it's got to be something in the contract, like, hey, we know that this is your plan, but if you have to stay longer, then it's going to cost you a little bit of money.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something like that, and we don't know the exact financial status of that, whether it's the crew that pays for it or SpaceX pays for it because it's out of the crew's control. But then if you think about it, it's out of SpaceX's control, so we don't really know how that works. But it is a day-by-day pay. But in terms of the cost, the launch is the largest cost, so that's already a fixed price. So everything else is really not as big of a money, not as big of a deal as the launch cost. So they got some good deal out of it. So they returned on Monday. They safely splashed down and were recovered by SpaceX's recovery ships. And Axiom 1 was the first all-private mission to the International Space Station. There were no NASA astronauts, no Russian astronauts on board. There was one professional, or so-called professional astronaut, who's an Axiom employee, Michael Lopez Angara. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name. But he was the professional astronaut and commanding the mission on board. So it was a successful mission. It was the third flight of Crew Dragon Endeavour, which was the first Crew Dragon to carry crew. It carried Bob and Doug on Demo 2, as well as the crew of Crew 2. But that was not the only Crew Dragon mission-related activities in the past week. We also saw the launch of Crew 4, which, as the name suggests, is the fourth operational crew mission for NASA from SpaceX. And that was the first flight of Dragon Freedom, which, as it currently stands, is the last Crew Dragon that's going to be built. That does not rule out any more built in the future, but the current plan is that is the end. SpaceX will now continue to reuse and refurbish capsules for the foreseeable future. That launched on Falcon 9 1067-4, and it launched from Launch Complex 39 on Wednesday, and later that day it docked to the station. So a pretty quick turnaround from launch to docking.
You say later that day, to me, it was a whole different day because it was depending on your sleep schedule, it was either really early in the morning or more likely for the people covering the launch, it was really late at night, right?
Yeah, it was like 4 a.m. I believe it launched, and that's either counted as a very late night or a very early morning.
Right.
So
Well,
that
when you
depends on your
consider,
definition.
yeah, crew walkout was at like midnight though. So, I know Chris G was out there at crew walkout. So I think for him it was a late night, and Julia was there on site and everything. I was supposed to be on site, but I came down with COVID.
Oh,
I was supposed to be at walkout. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited." And then came down with COVID.
glad you're doing well though.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Anybody out there, don't worry about me. I seem to be symptom free at this point. But let's see. We have a couple Axiom questions, or at least one. Philip Whitehouse was wondering, but does Axiom foot the bill, or do the passengers foot the bill for the extra time on the space station?
Yeah, we don't really know the specifics on that as far as I know. That's a good point. Yeah, because SpaceX isn't the customer. Axiom's the customer buying through SpaceX, who is buying through NASA.
Right.
So there's a lot of different avenues you could take there, or maybe, yeah, I don't know how it really works.
Also, is this the first vacation that somebody ever took where air is on the bill? Like, was that ever the case before? Because they allegedly have to pay for air.
Right.
I mean, Yusaku Maezawa did fly up on
Yeah.
Soyuz. There's been space tourism before, but I like where you're going.
Yeah. For clarification, there have been private passengers fly to the space station. This was just the first time that everybody on board, and
Mhm.
and I just, to me, it's super cool. I've said it before, probably on other streams or whatever, but it's super cool that we're already to this point. Like Bob and Doug flew for the first time about 2 years ago now. And, there was discussion of, at some point it'd be really cool for Dragon to be able to just do this with paying passengers, hands off basically. Obviously they want to coach somebody up on how to read those monitors and make sure that all the systems are okay. But we're already to a point where we're seeing Dragon carry passengers not just to orbit like they did with Inspiration 4, but all the way to the space station with almost no input from the crew at all. It's completely automated, and that was the way the system was built. But does that blow y'all's mind that they're already to this point and they're trusting the system enough to send these paying passengers?
Yeah, because like on previous space tourism missions, like with Yusaku Maezawa coming up on, I believe it was Soyuz MS-20. But like on previous missions like that, you would have, say, like 1 or 2 tourists, but then you would have a like professional Russian or NASA astronaut sort of commanding the whole mission and ferrying them to the station. But now it's just like you have this autonomous spacecraft and 4 space tourists, well, 3 and 1 professional astronaut, but not the same as before. But it's so automated that they trust it to just ferry these people to the station. And that does not mean that there's no way to take manual control or that these people aren't trained. The pilot and the commander are trained to take over in any situation, to dock, to undock, to do manual parachute deploy, to do a launch abort, anything like that. That is trained. But it's a lot different from having an astronaut who's trained for years or decades to hop on a flight. These people have been training for probably a few months, and that's a huge shift.
I wonder, maybe the next big milestone with this is when they fly a crew where no one on board has any history of aviation or astronaut training or anything like that. Because with Inspiration 4, of course, Jared Isaacman, he has been flying jets for a long time, so he's got some history with that. But I think maybe the next big milestone is going to be like, these are 4 total noobs, and we trained them. We trained them to do. And that's another interesting thing is like when they finally do that. I'm sure they still have to go through the simulations. Like here's what happens if you have to take over manually and dock to the space station. Like, would they even allow that? Would they allow a total noob to even fly, to have a crew that's entirely noobs that? Where there's a chance they might have to take over. Would they ever allow that rather than just like free flying, but actually fly to the space station?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I think at least some parts of the test will and learning will always be included, because this is not like, for example, in New Shepard launch where you will be on the ground again in a few minutes, you need to be prepared that this crew will be together and will be in this capsule for a significant amount of time. So I think some trainings for some, some emergencies is probably always recommended. I mean, even on planes, you still have you don't train the passengers to fly the plane, but you still have emergency trainings. You still have basically training for the worst. So I think that will be, especially with spaceflight, it will always be included, at least in some shape or form, but maybe less and less.
Right. Let's see. I had one more Axiom related. Nicholas Theus, did NASA charge hotel money on the ISS to Axiom? Yes, and I guess we did actually talk about that. So Axiom is paying that. I think that's the nature of the question, is who's paying it, and that would be Axiom, not SpaceX.
Yeah, I think Axiom's sort of like the core. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adrian.
No, I was going to a different part of this. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, Axiom's like the core of this mission. The astronauts pay them, then they pay NASA for the use of the station, then they pay SpaceX for the launch. So it seems like Axiom's probably the big center of all of this.
Yeah. And here they are actually getting out of the Dragon. Go ahead, Adrian. I
love how we went from discussing if there will fly crew ever on a used booster. I remember that was still a topic when Demo 2 happened. That was a big discussion point. And now we had a crew flight on a booster on a 4th mission. So that's also a very interesting side note for me for this crew mission, which I love, because it's not really a discussion point anymore. I mean, recent remarks by some officials even it
was Dr. Z.
Yeah, Dr. Z made the remark that he thinks that it might even make more sense to fly on a used booster now compared to a new one, because the used one already went to space successfully once or twice. So that's an interesting change in narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember back before Crew 2 was happening, there was a debate like, are they going to do a reused booster? And then they came out of nowhere and they're like, okay, we're going to have a reused booster. We're going to have a reused capsule. And that was a complete paradigm shift, because up until that point, ironically, the only company that was certified to do a reused capsule was Starliner. Dragon at that point was only new capsules right now. Of course, that was bound to change. But at that moment, it was like NASA was like, we want new capsules, we want new boosters. And then out of nowhere with Crew 2, they're like, okay, let's reuse Endeavour and let's reuse a booster. And like, that was pretty big.
Yeah. And let's see, so with Axiom 1, the return being delayed, that actually had a direct effect on Crew 4 launching, right? Do you want to talk about why that had such a direct effect? Like, why couldn't they just go ahead and launch Crew? They were ready to go, right?
Yeah, so yeah, they were ready to go to launch when they needed to, but it came down to the issue of docking ports in the station. So in terms of capabilities to dock Crew Dragon or Cargo Dragon to the space station, there are only 2 docking ports. Now, one of them was and still is taken up by Crew 3. They're going to be returning in the next few days. And the other one was taken up by Axiom 1. So you had no docking ports available. And as long as the weather kept delaying, Axiom couldn't undock. So you kind of kept kicking the can down the road of when can you launch Crew 4? And then once they finally undocked or had like a very clear undocking date, then they had the final go-ahead for Crew 4. So those 2 docking ports are really a pain to work around, I'm sure. I'm sure NASA would love to have an extra 1 or 2 international docking adapters, but as of right now, they have to work around just 2. And that's a pain because you have to deal with Crew Dragon for NASA missions, Cargo Dragon for commercial resupply, because Cargo Dragon can only dock at the international docking adapters, as well as eventually Starliner, and then you'll have to fit in commercial missions around there, and they all have to work together. They all have to dock and undock at time, or you're going to have a scheduling issue. So we'll see.
All right, let's see. Anything else here about crew flights before we move on?
I actually saw in chat, sorry, Steven, just one, I saw a good question from Nick here.
Okay.
Any plans for extra docking ports? Yes, but not anytime soon. So there's actually a proposal to have a docking port added to Prichal, the Russian node, which is basically like a ball with 6 docking ports on it they just launched. that was probably more of a study, so that's not really coming through. But Axiom, the company we're talking about, they're actually launching modules to the space station to grow the space station. And with those modules, some of them are going to have extra docking ports on them. So hopefully those could be used for Crew Dragon flights as well, but those are at best 2 to 3 years away.
Okay,
So
that was going to be my next question. Like, where are they in the development process?
I think they've begun construction of the first one, but it's launching in 2024, and I don't think that first module will have any extra ports.
Okay. And are these going to be like expandable style modules?
No, they're going to be similar to the modules that are already on the ISS, like the big metal cylinders, but they're going to be like, more advanced, better technology, and they're going to be covered in solar panels, actually, so they can generate their own power.
And maybe they can do most of their maintenance from the inside rather than having to do a spacewalk every time they need to, change a cable or a battery or something, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's things integrated in there like that, like an internal electronics box. And there you actually see the new modules are on the front side of the station there. So they'll generate their own power, everything like that. And then eventually, once you have all the new Axiom modules launched, it'll undock from the space station and become its own independent space station.
Yeah, super cool. I'm just glad that there's a company that's sort of kind of going to take over because, they keep delaying the retirement of the space station, which is nice. We love the space station, but it is starting to get up there in its years, and eventually it will have to be retired. And I'm just really glad that Axiom is working on being that replacement.
Yeah, and Axiom, their space station actually has a dedicated laboratory module, which is just showing it's not just a hotel, it's actually going to be for science research. And the Axiom 1 astronauts, one of their main purposes up there was to perform research. So it's not just a fancy stay in space, although that is a nice side project, but it is a lot of research and it's actually beneficial.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Don't want to run out of time. Whenever I host, typically by the time we get to the end of it, it's like we gotta get moving. Got to get moving. Let's see. So let's talk about Starlink. Everybody's like, Starlink. It's just another Starlink launch. Well, this one was especially interesting because it broke a bunch of reuse records. Adrian, do you want to talk about what those records were?
Yeah, it was really a bunch of records broken with that mission, which was very, very cool to see. So the main one, like the big record that probably was in every headline, was the new booster turnaround record. 21 days since the last flight of B1062, which is smashing the old record of 27 days by almost a week. And we are already talking in the time frame of 4 weeks. So they just cut off 1 week from that, and now it's 3 weeks.
Twice in 1 month. That's nuts.
we had this booster flew twice in this month. That's completely bonkers. And it seems like this is a part of a new project at SpaceX where they try to cut down experimentally the refurbishment time for these Starlink boosters. So we will see how they will maybe reduce the turnaround time even more in the future, but this is already very impressive. And they are getting to the point where they only need like few boosters to turn around for Starlink. And that probably helps with the high cadence they have planned for the whole Starlink manifest for this year. So yeah, very important for their goals, but also very cool to see. But not the only record. We also had the new pet turnaround record of like 40. They turned it around in 8 days from mission to mission, which is also just another record in this mission that was broken. And that's not the last record. They also broke a drone ship turnaround record. Just read the instruction, only spent 19 hours in port between flights. They basically, it was cool to see because they basically shipped it in and tried to get the booster off the deck as fast as possible because the drone ship had to move again for Starlink. So also another very, very interesting thing to see, and how they're optimizing all of these processes, because the high cadence and the high turnaround doesn't give you any benefit if you're not able to turn your drone ships around accordingly, because these boosters need to land on something. So that was another record. And another record was that SpaceX launched 6 times last month,
Yeah.
which is just another record on top. That's also just a side note.
In the NSF article, it went over like this was the month that they first launched like 3 times in a month, and then this was the month that they first launched for 4 times, and then 5 times, and it seems like each one was like closer together, right? Like I think the first time they launched 5 times in a month was just this last December. Am I remembering that right? I should have the article up, but yeah, you guys can obviously check it out. Somewhere in that article, it goes over. I mean, I think maybe a lot of people like maybe skip reading the Starlink article because it's just another Starlink. Well, it's not. There's always really cool information in there about the particular milestones and whatever mission, and this one especially because of all of the milestones. I'm gonna try to find that part, but yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
I think it's the cool thing about the Starlink mission is, and I think we talked about this before, is the fact that SpaceX basically has a whole set of their own missions where they can test stuff that a customer probably maybe wouldn't want to experience with their multi-million-dollar payload.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a cool ability that SpaceX has these own missions to really make some crazy things.
Yeah, and I did find it actually. It is down here. It says, and this is written by our own Alejandro, who you may know from several streams as of late. He's been on a couple NSF lives here recently. Let's see, the first time the company made 3 launches in the same calendar month was in June of 2017. The first time they made 4 launches in the same month was November of 2020. And then the first time they did 5 launches was December of last year. And then, of course, April was the first time they did 6. Constantly picking up that pace, man. Constantly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you have anything else to add? Because I think I have a question here, Starlink related. Where was it? It was right here. Oh, Peter, I'm not going to try to say your last name, sorry. Or maybe I will. Hobblesberger? I think that's right. Why are there so many Starlink missions when, according to Elon, version 1 is not economically viable? Who wants to take that?
Well, it might be even less economically viable to start operating the whole constellation and then leave it there. So you even if you have a scenario where this particular version you're launching right now does not produce you any money, it might be even worse if you start to hold the program and wait for Starship to arrive, and until then do nothing. So if you're yeah, of course they want to have the upgrade. They want to reduce the cost. They want to increase the capabilities, but better than nothing.
It's not completely out of the ordinary. In fact, I think it's somewhat ordinary for new companies to lose money the first little bit. Like, you know, you'll hear headlines of, you know, such and such company just became profitable. Because in the early days of most companies, they're losing money. They're investing into the business to try to get up off the ground. And I agree with Adrian. It's better to keep launching these satellites just so the service functions, because they have actual customers now. So you want to keep improving the service even if you're losing money.
Yeah, and if it, like same with Starship, like even if they wanted to start off with Starlink V2 and they were hoping to launch it on Starship, it's already been, the Starship orbital flight has already been delayed a year. It's probably not going to go up this summer either, honestly. So, and even then, that would be just the first flight deploying maybe a handful of Starlink satellites. And then you would get maybe like 10 minutes of usable time per area per day. You need to have thousands of satellites on orbit. And Starship is not going to reach that launch cadence for, let's say, optimistically a year. Optimistically a year.
Yeah.
So, and also Starlink V1 and V1.5 have given them so much useful data on what it's like to operate these many satellites, what improvements they can make to V2, because the V2 satellites are going to be much larger. They can have much more throughput. And data on how that works would not have happened had they not had launched so many Starlink V1 and V1.5 satellites.
Right.
And also they're generating a lot of money now too, because they have the beta program, which is actually going public, I think, like fully public. And they're generating some money, and they're generating consumer feedback. They're finding they're finding security problems, like with the Ukraine situation. They're finding security problems and fixing them. They're making their bandwidth faster. They're making their what's it called, the ping shorter. There's a lot of useful data.
Yeah. And we have a question from Musical Wolves. Thanks for the $5 there, Musical Wolves. What is the current record for the fastest turnaround time of any rocket, excluding SN10? I think it's Falcon 9, isn't it? Is it this one?
Yeah, it was this, because the fastest other reusable flight was with a space shuttle, and that was like 59 days between flights. Chris Bergen or Chris Gebhardt would correct me on this.
Yeah, I remember him saying it the other day, and I think he said 56, but he might have said 59. But yeah, he spit it out like immediately.
We can basically count down at this point, and it will appear in chat, because I think I saw Chris B there. So
I saw. Oh, there he is.
Oh. And then Michael just corrected me, said 54, and Chris B just said 54.
And even then, that's not as quick as 20. So with every record SpaceX breaks, they're also breaking a world record.
Right. Let's see, another one from Nicholas Theus. Is the option still open to launch Starlink version 2 on Falcon 9? I don't see why not. Is there some special reason?
I think they basically, in one of the permit documents, they basically outlined that they're committing to a certain version of the Starlink 2 satellites. There were two, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember there were two versions how they could basically do the Starlink V2. One was for Falcon 9, one was for Starship. And in the last one, they basically opted for Starship. So at this point, they are kind of locked in on the upgrade happening on Starship.
Yeah, they had the two options where they could launch a Falcon 9 optimized one or a Starship optimized one. And by having a Starship optimized one, you don't need to worry about making it as mass efficient or as size efficient, because you're working with such a large payload area and such a large payload capability in general. So I'm sure if they wanted to, they could probably fit like a few on a Falcon 9, but it wouldn't really be that many or that really viable per launch.
See, Flawed Perspective is asking a question that I think a lot of people, like, I see these in my comments on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff, questions about debris. So I like to field these kinds of questions just to so people know what's up. But Flawed Perspective saying, will SpaceX collect old Starlink units or leave them as debris in low Earth orbit?
To my knowledge, they have added deorbiting capabilities for the Starlinks, and as soon as they reach the end of their life cycle and are no longer maneuverable, they try, or like I think they cannot guarantee that they will always deorbit them, because sometimes things don't work, but they will try to deorbit the satellites if they're at the end of their life cycle. That was my knowledge based on the last few tweets that Elon did about that topic.
Yeah, and do either of you remember, because I know that it's been said, like, even if they lose all control of the Starlink satellites, or like individual, I'm not talking about the whole constellation, but there's a certain amount of days, or not days, but years that has been said that they'll come down on their own, just because they're not, relatively, they're not that massive. And they're low enough in their orbit that there's enough drag that they're not the type of satellites that's going to be up there for hundreds of years if left unchecked.
No, it'd be like 5 years maximum in their operational orbits. But one good thing that SpaceX does do is they insert the Starlink satellites into about a 350 kilometer orbit, which is much lower than their 550 kilometer operational orbit. And they do quick checkouts there, and if the satellites are working correctly, then they boost them up. But if the satellites are not working, and say like the propulsion doesn't work or they can't talk to the satellite at all, it'll re-enter within days, if not a few weeks. So they're being very responsible about this.
Oh, what is this? What are we looking at?
Oh yeah, basically the presentation of SpaceX, how long things based on altitude are in space. I think they also mentioned that they can basically turn the satellites in a high drag configuration. And with that, they will increase the little drag they already get at that height,
Right.
and start picking up more drag to go down faster. So they are experimenting with ways and using some ways to mitigate that effect.
Yeah. So to answer the question, SpaceX is not interested in leaving a bunch of junk up there because they use that space as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's a satellite that's not working, they're going to do all they can to bring it down. They definitely don't want to leave debris up there, not just for themselves, but everybody else.
And even for old satellites that don't have that much capability, like we saw the V0.9 satellites, which was the first batch of 60 satellites launched back in like May of 2019. Those were like very basic. They had, I don't know exactly what they were, but they were very basic compared to what we have today. And because of that, because they weren't giving that much useful, use out of it, SpaceX intentionally deorbited all 60 of those throughout like the past few years. So they are cleaning up when they don't really get that much use out of satellites.
Right, we keep getting questions that are referring to either Starlink or reusability, so I kind of want to keep rolling on these. Saturn Man saying, does the Falcon 9 booster aim itself to the drone ship, or does it land on a spot in the ocean where the drone ship also happens to be?
That I think, and I'm pretty sure I heard before that they're acquiring the exact position of the drone ship at some point.
I remember hearing a long time ago that it was like the drone ship has a GPS coordinate and the Falcon 9 has a GPS coordinate, and as long as they're both in the same spot, then everything happens like it should. But I also know that there is they do have drone ship acquisition of signal, so I honestly don't know what it's supposed to be.
And Michael's telling us in the back channel that the drone ship is in the exact position that it should be, and Falcon just goes to that point.
Okay. So, yeah. Well, I wonder what the acquisition of signal is about. Is it just so they can, like, because the drone ship's equipped to receive data, and they might as well receive the data because it's just another channel to capture it through? Telemetry. Yeah, okay. Telemetry, Michael says. Yeah, so that's what I figured. Yeah, it's so that they just maintain that connection for telemetry purposes.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. All right, let's see. And I had another one. Oh, okay. Robin asking, what would be the fastest possible turnaround time for the same booster and launch complex and drone ship? I think this would be a speculation zone.
Very heavy speculation.
Yeah, that could be but it could be a fun speculation to do.
Well, here, one factor to consider is definitely go ahead and add 3 or 4 days, because if it's a drone ship landing, that's how long it takes to get home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then add another day. Well, let's say at least 5 days, because it's going to take you a day to pick up the booster, fold the legs up, lay it down on the transporter, and how quickly can they roll it to whatever hangar they need. So let's say we're at least at 5 or 6 days already.
For drone ship, but there could be, like, if we are talking about fastest possible ever, then we are probably talking about RTLS, because that skips a lot of steps.
Right.
But but even then, yeah, I think getting a lot more out of this will be hard, but probably doable. Like maybe sub 10ish days. I could see that with an RTLS landing, like transport it back. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have like the second stage and the payload sitting there in the hangar ready to integrate, you bring the booster back to Slick 40, which, as far as I know, Slick 40, since it's the newest pad, it supports the fastest turnaround times of about 7 days per pad, or 7 days between launches. I think 39A is like 12 days, and then Vandenberg is probably like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
I feel like I've read those in NSF articles back in like 2016, but again, not sure. But yeah, it would be tough to do, but I'm sure they can get to around 7 days, maybe 10 at most.
Yeah. If we're doing an RTLS, then yeah. So there you go. There's your answer.
Warning, heavy speculation.
Heavy speculation, yeah. We still don't have our little twirly alarm thing that we need for speculation zone, but we need to get one of those. Like, just post it right at the top of the screen, just speculation zone. Okay, so that is all that I'm seeing so far for Andrew Biko getting in at the 11th hour. Will SpaceX develop a new Falcon 9 block? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
Falcon 9's Elon said Falcon 9's dead end architecture at this point. There's not they've pushed it as far as they possibly can. They are making little tweaks here and there. Like we have seen minor revisions between different boosters of Block 5. And we know that the boosters, say, like in the 50, 60, 70 series are easier to reuse than the 40 series. But at this point, it's just minor fixes. They're not putting any major R&D into this. Everything is going into Starship.
Right. All right. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. We had an interesting photo tweeted by one Tory Bruno, who's been looking for his engines for quite some time.
He found them.
He seems to have found them.
There are my engines, Jeff.
He's like, engines. Yeah. So what are we looking at here? They look engine-y to me, but Ian or Adrian, which one of y'all wants to take this?
I could take it.
Go ahead.
So what we're looking at here are the sort of basic assemblies of two BE4 engines. Now, these are the newest engines that Blue Origin has been developing and testing over the past, I believe, about a decade they've been working on these, maybe a little less. But these are the most powerful engines that Blue Origin has developed. They're sort of a competitor, not competitor to Raptor. They run on liquid methane and liquid oxygen, and they've recently been finishing up qualification testing. Now, there have been a lot of rumors and speculation and some official details about the delays of the engines. These were originally supposed to be ready for launch in about 2019, maybe even 2018, finishing development and qualification. But because of issues that we really don't know details of, there have been delay after delay after delay, and only recently have they finished qualification. So what you're looking at here on screen, the two bells in center, those are the beginnings of the two flight engines for Vulcan Flight 1. Now, Vulcan is the successor to United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket. It's going to have higher performance, cheaper cost, and eventually partial reusability built in. But yeah, these are the first two BE4 engines ready for flight. And now, if you're looking at them, they're not really flight ready yet. They're still very deep in the build process. But hopefully in the coming months, they can take them to the test stand and then eventually get them to United Launch Alliance's factory. And from there, they can integrate it and then send it to the Cape for launch. But that is a very fluid schedule. We don't know the exact details of that, and we'll just have to watch over the coming months to see what actually happens with that.
And I just want to point out, Mike Smith is pointing out that there are three. There are two bells and one on the stand in the background.
Yep, DOS actually pointed that out on the back channel too, right at the same moment. On the stand, you can actually see right in the middle there, it's kind of blocked off, but that is a qualification engine. Basically, it's more or less the same build as a flight engine, except that is confirmed never going to fly. That is basically just making sure they have the production down, the engine design down, and it can work at flight levels. I think actually it's being circled right there. That's on the work stand. So they've had several qualification engines built, and that is the most recent, it seems, in that line of engines.
So when you compare, obviously these two on the front are missing stuff.
Basically, the whole power pack is missing. Like,
Yeah.
this is, as Ian said, a very early build of BE4, like a very early state of these flight engines, and they still have some work to do before these are really engines. Like, they're part of the flight engine, but they are not the full flight engine yet. But hey, progress.
And Philip saying the back channel, the nozzles are not engines. So yeah, we're seeing parts of engines here. But yeah, like you said, the power pack is not installed. These things are nowhere near flight capable. The power pack, which for those who don't know, the power pack is basically the fancy bits of the engine. So it'll have the pumps.
Tubing.
Yeah, the tubes, the pumps, the valves, all of that fancy stuff that you need to make an engine run. The nozzle's sort of like the frame, but the power pack is really the engine, the operating bits. So yeah, like Michael said, the power pack's basically the engine, and the nozzle improves performance. So these are very early in the build, and we don't know, because Blue Origin is super quiet. We don't know details about how long it takes to build a BE4, how the build process has been going so far. We don't know any of that, so we're going to be learning that alongside you guys over the coming months.
I did get to see the New Glenn mock-up out there. So once a year here at the Cape, they have what's called Cape Family Day, and my roommate has a friend who works out there. So and it's really cool. Actually, it opened my eyes to how sort of connected the whole launch industry was. I was surprised to see like all the different launch providers, they like open up their area of the Cape, and all the different employees can go and visit each other's stuff, you know. And of course, you know, they limit certain things like Relativity. They didn't allow any photos at all. You could take a picture of their hangar, which I did take a picture. But like at Blue Origin, once we got over there, like towards the end of the hangar that's facing the pad and the pad itself, they were like, yeah, you can take pictures out here. I was like, oh, I can take pictures? Oh my gosh. So yeah, I got to get up close with the New Glenn Pathfinder. It's very large, y'all. Hey, look at this. Yeah, there's actually the Pathfinder right there. That's when it was leaving the factory. Yeah, it's very large. Now, when you look inside, it's all like structural bits. Like there were no like mock-up engines even. Its sole purpose is to have the same mass as a real first stage, and they're going to use it to test out the launch pad infrastructure, make sure, you know, basically fit checks. But that was really cool. I didn't mean to go on this long, but that was a super cool day to be able to visit all the different pads. SpaceX didn't really have much going on, but I assume that's because they were busy preparing for Crew 4 and also getting Axiom back. But yeah, cool little tidbit about the Cape, something that they like to do.
I think that's also what excites me the most about seeing these BE4s, because yes, I love Vulcan. I'm really looking forward to see Vulcan fly, but man, I want to see New Glenn fly.
Mm-hmm. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest looking and like rockets right now in development. I think designing it with partial reusability right from the start is cool. So yeah, I'm really excited to see flight engines that will be used for Vulcan, but that also makes me very happy because of the implications this has on BE4s for New Glenn.
Mm-hmm. And
go ahead.
I was saying one last thing. Like, we're seeing BE4s being built here, but I believe we've been heard. I believe it's been publicized that there's like an obligation that Blue Origin has to build ULA's engines first before they can build their own New Glenn engines. Like at that point,
my understanding too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's going to be probably a while before we see New Glenn engines. And even then, we have not seen any New Glenn tank structures, nothing like that. So New Glenn is probably a while away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question here that might put you guys on the spot, but no pressure if you don't know, if you're not able to answer this. Outdoorsman show saying, could you guys go over the engine specs of the BE4 versus Raptor?
Okay. So, yeah. I mean, actually, I've done a little bit of research comparing the two. So, Blue Origin is very hush-hush on the details of BE4. Tori Bruno, CEO of United Launch Alliance, has said that throughout testing, the numbers have actually gone up on the thrust and the efficiency, I guess, of what they've been getting out of it. But the rated thrust is 240 tons per engine. Now, Raptor 1, which has flown on Starship, had 185 tons per engine, but Raptor 2 has 230 tons per engine. So Raptor's catching up to BE4, but it isn't there yet. And in terms of efficiency, Raptor's around 330 seconds. BE4 is, I think, like 305 seconds or so. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah,
that's a graphic by Tim.
I'm literally peeking, like looking forward at the screen. Yeah, so BE4, it's not as efficient as Raptor off the bat because Raptor uses what's called a full flow staged combustion cycle. I'm not going to get into that because that's way too complicated, but BE4 uses a oxidizer-rich combustion cycle. Now, Raptor is going to be more efficient off the bat because that cycle is a lot more efficient than the BE4s. So Raptor is going to have an efficiency boost over BE4 for sure.
There you go. Yeah, and that's our good buddy Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. He's got some great info over there. If you want to know more, feel free to surf on over there to his page. Let's see. I a little behind the scenes here. The way I have my screen arranged, I am sorry for Musical Wolves and James Van Herent's. I have my super chats covered up, and I didn't see yours from earlier. Musical Wolves earlier said that they should charge the weather creator for the extra days, talking about the Axiom launch. And then James said, I believe in a statement, NASA said that they won't charge for the extra days. Do you guys remember seeing a statement like that?
I don't remember hearing anything like that, but I could totally see it being a thing.
Oh, Michael says, true. Yes, the statement is correct. Yeah. So thank you for, well, that's nice. So they did get those days for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accommodating, NASA. Like, that's really great customer service. If you get stranded here, we won't charge you extra. That's like a good selling point. Hey, come visit the space station where we won't charge you if you get stuck here. Okay, let's see.
Hotel perk.
And also, before we move on, I wanted to hit Grimity here, just because I love it when people get to come to town and see a launch. They're asking any info on the projected launch from Florida this week. I'm in town. I love it when people get to come and see a rocket launch. So far, so good, right? We're expecting a Starlink launch this week, right?
Yes, this Thursday.
Yeah.
Surprise, another Starlink.
Yeah. So yes, we are expecting one on Thursday. My tip to you, because this is the method that I use to check on dates and especially times when we're actually getting close to launch day. I always want to know exactly what time. Our good friend Michael Baylor, who's pulling the switches in the background, he designed an app/website called NextSpaceflight.com, and it shows you launch dates and times all around the world. If you happen to live, there it is. You happen to live close to a particular launch site, like I live here in Florida, I have it show me just the Florida launches, so I don't see all the China or Russia or anything like that. And if I want to see them all, then obviously I can. But you can set your favorite locations, and so it'll just show you the ones that you want to see. So that goes for anybody else out there. I tell people this whenever I'm like out in a public viewing area and people are like, how are we supposed to know when there's a launch? I'm like, look, nextspaceflight.com. It's really a great way to know. I sound like this is an ad. It's not an ad. This is what I actually use because I'm forgetful. There's a lot of launches, so I have the app tell me when these launches are coming up. So with that, let's move on to some really exciting space science news with James Webb finding focus. That's always exciting for a photographer. It's always good to know that you are in focus, and James Webb is now in focus, right?
Yes, so the team announced this week that they have completed mirror alignment and they have completed focusing with all of those. Now that's great because James Webb, for those of you familiar with it, James Webb uses 16 hexagonal mirrors, I believe. But it's not one large mirror, it's just a whole bunch of small mirror segments who need to adjust their position very slightly. And over the past few months, they have been doing just that. They've been adjusting and focusing the mirrors and aligning them to make one pure image from that giant mirror. Now they just announced that focusing is complete, and they actually released a very, very cool photograph. It's actually a collage from all of the instruments working together. Now this is very cool because the mirror focusing is complete. That's one of the largest things and one of the main things here. Now up next, they're going to be calibrating the individual instruments. So you actually, there's the picture I'm talking about there. Each instrument there is labeled. So you have near spec, which is a spectrograph that can basically say what elements and what molecules you're looking at. Near cam in the middle, near infrared camera. It's a camera that looks in the near infrared. The fine guidance sensor. And then there is, actually blocked by me a little bit. I can't point where it's weird seeing in the mirror, but basically next to me, kind of I'm blocking it, is the mid-infrared instrument, which can see in much further infrared, and that's really good for seeing very faint and very current target date for the first science operations and the first released scientific images is about July at this point. But just like everything else in the spaceflight world, that is very, very variable and very changing. That didn't make any sense. It's constantly changing. So we'll have to see over the next few months how instrument calibration goes, and then they can finally begin science operations. But very, very good step here for James Webb. A lot of things were hanging in the balance here, but it turns out that you can calibrate and focus a giant multi-segment mirror in space.
Yeah.
Where apparently we had no sound while you were full screen on that picture.
While this image.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
somebody in
if
the
you-
chat said we cannot hear infrared.
So if you can remember exactly what you said while this image was on screen.
But yeah. Like I said, the picture that I'm blocking, which is here,
Right
there we
there,
go,
yeah.
right there. That's the mid-infrared imager, and that is, like I said, it's in the mid-infrared, which is light that is much further into the spectrum away from what we can see. Mid-infrared is really good for finding very dark, very faint objects, as well as very far away objects. So all of these different instruments that you can see on screen here have very different science goals in mind, but they're all going to work together to be very useful for scientific data on James Webb. I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
Close
Roughly.
enough.
Let's see. Oh, and there is a tweet that I saw from Karen Sandstrom, and I don't know who put this little video together. I don't want to put you on the spot, Michael, but can we show that? It's a comparison between Spitzer and James Webb. Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what
Yeah,
Spitzer
that
sees,
was amazing.
and this is what James Webb sees.
That is beautiful. And there it's full
incredible.
screen now.
Yeah, look at the sharpness.
Look at that.
Now, Spitzer was previously like the best infrared space telescope that we had, and it was unfortunately due to a lack of funding. It was shut down, I think, in 2020. So looking at just the insane jump in resolution that we've gotten here from Spitzer to James Webb, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah. It's incredible. Let me see if there's. Is there anything else you guys have to add while I looking for more questions about James Webb? I don't think I have any. Was there anything else about James Webb that you wanted to add before we moved on?
I just want to add that it's very, very, very good to see that we are this close now to James Webb producing actual science data. I know we all were super, super nervous when it launched, and the months of calibrating, of alignment, of deployment, and getting this close now is cool to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, what else needs to be done to be like, okay, James Webb is fully operational?
So in the next few months, they're going to be bringing, so like we saw, the instruments are already online. The instruments are already producing data. This is just engineering data. But over the next few months, because each instrument is not just a simple camera just looking at the mirror. Each instrument has its own filters, their own sub-instruments. Some of them have what's called a coronagraph, which is basically a very to really simplify it, they use a mechanism to block out the light from a sun. So let's see this light in the background. They block out that light, and with that you can see planets around a star.
Right.
So it's very useful because if in the daytime, if you're looking at the sun, you can't really see anything that's around the sun. But if you block the sun out, or say it goes to nighttime, then you can see all the much dimmer objects around it. So all the cameras have their own little subcomponents, and they're going to be testing those out, making sure each filter works, making sure everything can move properly. And then once they get all that done and confirm that all the instruments are fully working, then James Webb will be ready for science. So that'll be happening over the next few months.
Cool. And then I think one last question before we move on. John Depker asking, what is the farthest time into the past that James Webb can see?
That's an interesting question because it can't.
Can it see the microwave background? Like, because that's like,
No.
what, 13.5 billion years or light years away, right?
Yeah, so the cosmic microwave background, CMB, is really the furthest back in time you can see, which I think is about 250 to 300,000 years after the Big Bang. Now, with that, like the name suggests, you need to have a microwave telescope, which Webb is very much not the microwave telescope. It is on the exact opposite side of the electromagnetic spectrum from microwaves.
Yeah.
And, oh, Steven, your camera's froze. Oh, or it's not. But, strange, it's frozen on the preview. But anyway, so Webb is not going to be able to see the cosmic microwave background, but it will be able to see very dim, very faint objects using the infrared, because far away and very dim objects do kind of emit infrared light. That's what we can see. So it's not going to be able to see right after the Big Bang, but it'll see like a few million or a few hundreds of million years after the Big Bang.
Oh, wow. That's actually closer than I thought.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. All right. So that's going to do it for James Webb. And then to follow that up, we had a launch of a brand new rocket, right? This was the first launch of the Angara. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first Angara 1-2 configuration launched launched this week with a calling it mystery payload might be accurate. It was very classified payload. We don't know a lot about this launch. We know that it was apparently a success. And they reached orbit successfully and debuted the rocket successfully. But besides that, there was some speculation that this launch might be connected to an anti-satellite test, but that also was not confirmed so far. So it's a very foggy launch, and that's not related to Vandenberg in this case. But in general, like it's hard to see what they did with this launch. But apparently the rocket worked, so that's good.
Yeah. All right, and I don't have any questions about it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we move on to Starship?
Not really.
It's a very, very thoughtful response there. Okay, well, every NSF Live, we save Starship for last because that's sort of what everybody wants to talk about. So we kind of tease you with that, but also it's sort of in case we run long, because we know everybody wants to talk about Starship, and now's the time. I actually have some questions stored up about Starship, but if you were paying attention this week, then you will know that we have this new thing called McGregor Live, which was actually a shock to even, well, I'll say most of us. Like, most of the NSF crew had no idea that this was going on. Like, there were times that, like, I'd need to talk to Doss about something, and he'd be like, hey, it might take me a minute. I'm out of town right now, but I'll get back to you, whatever. I assumed he was down at Starbase working on robots,
Same.
And then so the other day, so you guys are doing a Raptor side chat. It's Adrian and Nick and Ian
Alex
and Alex. Okay, yeah,
Not
you
me,
guys. So you guys were on Raptor side chat
with Doss.
Yeah, with Doss, and then all of a sudden, he even mentioned something about a flare stack, and I was telling these guys before we started, I'm just in my room just playing a video game, and I hear Doss say something about a flare stack, and I'm like, what are you talking about, flare stack? And none of them responded to it, but then all of a sudden he switched on McGregor Live. So
Yeah.
tell me about that, Adrian.
Oh yeah, that was fun. So we had no idea. We didn't even know that something was going to happen. We were like, my knowledge was, okay, I'm doing a Raptor side chat apparently. Okay, cool. But then this happened, and at first I think Alex and I noticed, because we had like notifications on our channel, and then we didn't even mention it because we're like, can we mention this? Is this okay? Is this planned? What's happening here? So we tried to even like just be normal on stream, and it was and suddenly Daz shifted its commentary with like the flare stack and everything, and we were and Nick, the best thing was Nick was in the field, so he had no idea. Yeah, here you go.
Oh, I thought we were gonna hear the audio
be the
there.
center core for Psyche. Super exciting. I love when science and rockets. I always like that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you see the big red.
seal.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I think since this fire goes on for, I think 2 minutes.
Yeah. It was a great debut of McGregor Live. It's like I can't remember how long after he brought it up on screen that this firing happened, but it was so perfect. So for anybody, I guess we're talking as if everybody knows, and I'm going to assume most of y'all do, but anybody that doesn't know, McGregor it's in Texas. It's SpaceX's engine test facility. They test Raptors, they test Merlins, they test full up first stage, second stage Falcon 9s. This is where every engine stops here before it ever makes it anywhere where it's going to fly, right?
Yep. Any Merlin, any Raptor, any Falcon 9 first stage, second stage, all of it goes to McGregor. Every Super Draco engine, every Draco engine. McGregor's basically there. Let's just get everything tested. Every engine that ever flies has gone through several tests before it even hits the launch pad.
Right. And so just like Starbase Live is 24/7, you can go there any time of day and just see what's going on. Same thing applies for McGregor Live. Now, I don't think they test at night. I think they have a cutoff, right? It's like, what is it, like 9 o'clock local or something like that?
I think like 9 or 10 local, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, if you were to go to McGregor Live,
Now that's the Raptor side.
Did you plan for that? Did you plan for
gosh.
that?
Adrian, big plan for that.
Like,
Hey,
this
Chad?
was no accident.
What do you
that
think?
was amazing.
What do you think, Chad?
So
It's so strange hearing all your voices like 2 times. I'm just like,
right. And one of the cool features of that stream is there in the middle. It's got that super wide view there, but it also has the audio levels scrolling across the bottom of that center screen, and so you can look there and see if anything has just happened. And also up in the top left corner, we're going to be keeping a tally of all the tests that day. So it'll say if it's Raptor, which stand it was on, what the time was, and the duration. And so if you watch our streams, you know that at the top left, there's going to be a clock there. So you can use that little box of info. If you want to see a Raptor test or a Merlin test, you can scroll back to that time and actually watch it yourself. You don't have to wait for someone to clip it and put it out. You can just go to the stream and check it out yourself. And then this was what I think Michael called it Raptor Hour, like, because apparently in the last hour of the day they try to squeeze in one last test, and they did just that on day 1 of McGregor Live.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
That view is so cool.
I love it. It's so bright too. Like it just lights it up. Oh, yeah. That's so cool. And the audio too. The audio just really adds on. Like, yeah, it'd be cool with video, but the audio, just like hearing you can hear the engines throttle up and throttle down.
You can see it in the graph, in the audio graph as well. You can see how the graph gets louder and wider. So you can basically see the throttling sometimes in the audio graph, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you can sort of confirm what you think you're hearing. You know, I think I heard it dip down or pick up. One thing I like about this shot here is that lens flare in the top left. That's from Raptor. That's the flame there causing that lens flare up there.
Yep, yeah. It's so cool.
So yeah, have fun with McGregor Live. If you miss all of the testing that was happening at one point down at Starbase, you just want to see some fire, McGregor Live is there for you. And from what I can tell, there are usually quite a few people hanging out in chat, so lots of other people to hang out with and talk to. And DOS is telling me 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Local time. That's the usual test window.
Gotcha.
And to commemorate this, we also have some new items in the store. I love how the audio is still rolling. I think I may have I think I may have caught Michael off guard by going to this. We have this new shirt what is Raptor Wrangler. Yeah, there it is. Bam, right there on screen.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you would like to become a Raptor Wrangler, all you need is a mug or a T-shirt or something like that. You just need the shirt. I think I love this design. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. I actually saw that in the theaters in 1993 when I was a wee lad. So I love. As soon as I saw the design, I'm like, "Yep, I love it." So yeah, make sure to go. What is it? Shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and you can pick up your own Raptor Wrangler shirt and wear it down to Starbase or something. You know. And if you spot a raptor, strike that pose. Actually, wait, wasn't somebody saying that? Nick said that if he gets the chance, he's gonna try to get himself doing that pose in front of some raptors.
That would be so cool.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we still have a few of those plushies left. We're trying to clear. Nope.
Oh,
I lied. We sold out. Oh, if you missed out
Whoops.
on the plushies, I am so sorry. I have mine.
I have mine.
So yeah, but thanks to everybody that bought those plushies and everybody that supports us through the shop. It's a nice way to support the channel and also get you something tangible in the man. These shirts just look so good, and Pauline does a great job designing them. I'm pretty sure she designed all of these. That broomstick one is just awesome. It's so cool. So yeah, there you go. That's the shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Oh, there it is. Yeah, let's look at that a little bit closer. It's great.
Oh, good meme.
Yeah, so pick something up there and thank you for that support. Speaking of support, I think I should probably hit some of these super chats. We're going to continue talking about Starship here in just a second. Let me hit some of these super chats. They've been up here for a minute. We've got Free Jimmy or Free A Jimmy. This is for Ian. Is your name short for something, Brian or Adrian?
Oh, my name is Ian, I-A-N. It's the Scottish form of John, actually. So
oh, really? Oh,
the actual spelling of Ian is I-A-I-N.
Uh-huh.
But my parents just chose Ian, and I like it. But yeah, not short for anything. I get called Ethan a lot, though. Like, way more than you might think.
All right. Let's see. Westy Third saying McGregor Live Fund as if we needed another reason to watch NSF. Okay, and yeah, these are all going to be the rest of these. They're all Starship related anyway. Musical Wolves asking, is the delay with FAA because of 4 cranes nearby instead of 4 towers, or because the water tower could fly? Okay, see, I thought it was a serious question. Yes, that is the answer.
Yep.
The answer is yes. Stefan Baptiste asking, could Bezos influence FAA to keep delaying? I don't think so.
No.
No.
But we should talk about that topic, by the way.
Yeah. In fact, let's do that. I have another question here about something else Starship related, but yeah, let's talk about that. Talk about that FAA stuff.
So well, it's quite a can of worms. So the FAA has once again delayed the environmental assessment release, which is
shocking.
Yeah, what? They only announced it the day of. But yeah, so the FAA is currently doing an environmental assessment of the Boca Chica site for Starship and Super Heavy. And what that means is they're basically looking over every little aspect of the site, whether it be sound, carbon emissions, light emissions, because they're right next to a beach, and sea turtles are actually very much affected by light. So looking at light, looking at sound, sonic booms, how it can affect South Padre Island, which is only a few miles to the north. So it's a really big report that they're doing right now. There's a lot of factors at play, and with a rapidly reusable launch vehicle and a launch site to support that, nothing like this has ever been proposed before. Nothing like this has ever been studied before. So it's not really surprising that it's taking such a long time, because all of this is new. They've never had to do a thing. They've never had to consider, oh, what if they launch 5 times a day? What's the effect of that going to be? Because there's never been a thing like that. at most it's been like maybe 5 times a year, maybe 5 times a month, but Starship's going to be a whole new scale. And I think it's totally fair that the FAA is taking their time. And not only that, it's also, they have a lot of public comments to look into. So there was a time period, I believe in September of last year, September to November, where the FAA was like, hey, we're publishing a draft of the environmental assessment, which is still available online. It's basically just a rough copy of what they think it's going to look like. And then they said, hey, we want some public comments. What does the public think? What do space fans think? What do Texas locals think? And so it took a month or two to get all those comments in.
They got like 19,000, right?
They got 18,000 comments.
I think they got way more than they were expecting.
Yeah,
because
some person with a lot of Twitter followers apparently thought,
yeah,
let's get more comments.
And the thing is, too, they legally have to go over each and every comment and reply to each and every comment. Now, when you have 18,000 comments to look through, that's not a quick deal. And also 18,000 comments, and you have to make an environmental assessment, and you have to study the long-term effects of this, and see if any of the comments relate to the report you're making. This is not going to be a 1 month and done task. Honestly, I don't really see it being done in May either. This could take a while, but that's okay. Because again, this is a brand new process. No one's ever proposed things like this before. And the FAA has even said in their most recent report that SpaceX keeps changing the proposal. So they can't just look at the same proposal from last year because SpaceX keeps modifying it bit by bit. So they not entirely have to restart, but they have to kind of re-examine everything now with that new data.
Yeah.
So not a short process. Don't be surprised if we get more delays.
And I add hope in here.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Adrian enters with hope.
Let me enter with hope. So, or let's say hope that the process is at least soon done. So one good news is that the Endangered Species Act consultation is done. That was in the recent update of the website. That's now done. So there were 3 reports still missing. One of the is the main environmental assessment, one is the Section 106 review, and the third one is the Endangered Species Act. The last one is now done. The second good news is the Section 106 review didn't get delayed for another month. It only got delayed to May 6th, which also, at least to me, sounds like they're close to get that ready. They delayed it from for 14 days. So that all sounds like maybe that is also close to hit. The big question then still is, what's about the environmental assessment, the last outstanding report after that, which is still missing. And but I get if the more of these boxes are checked, the more hope I get that the report is soon done. However, and here I stop my hope, that doesn't mean it comes back green, right? I mean, we should at least say that this whole checkboxing here is only, hey, we have this report. This checkboxing here doesn't mean, hey, we are fine with this and there's no problems arising here. This is only, we have the report we need for the final thoughts we have. And the outcome is either SpaceX will get a FONSI, which would mean a finding of no significant impact. So they could probably move on to acquire a launch license. Or the other one
I love
could
that it's
be
called the FONSI.
Yeah, it's such a funny...
Hey,
Waka
it's
waka.
cool, man.
The other one is also a funny word, which is ICE. But that would be bad because an ICE, so a full environmental impact statement, would delay the process by years. So we don't know the outcome yet. We don't have any insight into the process. We don't have any insight into the FAA. So it will be interesting what the final vote and the final verdict of the FAA will be after this.
13th Andy was wondering, and this goes along with something that Ian said, is there any detail about what SpaceX changed and when the last change was submitted? You have
nothing that I know of.
Yeah.
Maybe pure speculation right here, to be clear, but maybe it's related to like the new booster design with the extra engines, maybe the increased sound. But again, zero idea. That's total speculation.
Okay. That's what kind of what I figured, but that it just popped up there, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
Yep. And I just saw a question in chat too. Someone was asking why the Endangered Species Act is taking so long. And well, the thing is, they're building their launch site in a wetland. And for those who don't know, wetlands often are extremely rich with life. And they offer a very unique habitat for a lot of species. And it is actually home to a lot of endangered species. And when you're launching several times a day in a wetland with endangered species nearby, you need to do a very in-depth study, which can take months of field research because you need to see how these species are actually acting in the area. So it takes a long time to figure that out because you do not want to hurt endangered species, because if there's species that are only native to that area and they get significantly impacted from Starship, there can be a lot of issues in the ecosystem. So you need to be very careful and make sure that they can work around the endangered species. So a lot of factors in play here. It's not surprising that it's taking so long.
All right, and
go ahead.
Just
can I hit the speculation alarm here?
Yeah.
So this is the thing that Michael mentioned, the back channel, and I also have that opinion that what SpaceX might have modified is things in the report that the FAA said to them, or that they have the feeling now, might return this as an ice. So that SpaceX maybe is getting worried about something, or have like an idea what might be hard on the border of what might turn this from Fonzie to ice. I mean, there were things like a lot of drilling operations. There were a pipeline in that whole process. So there could be things that maybe SpaceX decided to modify now to make this report a bit better in terms of environmental impacts, and that might be a reason why they modified the report. That wouldn't be like that happens in these process that you try to modify to get the result you want to have. So yeah, that's my speculation. But hey, again, my only a speculation.
All right, let's try to mow through these questions here, and not too fast. We may run over a little bit on time. I just made sure with Michael, he's good on time. So if we run a little bit over, no big deal. Arcadio says, if the FAA don't approve the Starship orbital flight in Boca Chica, how much time for an orbital flight from the Cape?
Year?
Yeah, probably about a year is my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less, but I'd say the odds of a Cape launch happening this year are extremely slim, if any.
Yeah,
I would say the odds of the Cape launch this year are my opinion is at zero.
Yeah,
absolutely zero.
Yeah.
Now,
look at how long it took them to get to this point at Boca Chica with the launch tower and all the infrastructure there. It took a very long time, and that launch table was being worked on for some time. Now, of course, they're going to be able to apply any lessons learned when they're building the first one to each future iteration.
Yep.
But yeah, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of lessons learned. So I would honestly expect that the build of the Cape pad, both the tower and the pad and the factory, would be faster than at Boca Chica, because they're going to learn at Boca Chica, let's not do this, or like, let's do this. This one works really well. Let's go all in on this. And they're going to make it faster. But still, I could see a vehicle on the pad in like November, December for fit checks, but nothing ready for flight anytime soon. And plus the factory at Roberts Road is just pilings right now. They are months away from having even a shell of a building done.
Right.
It doesn't look for me as well like what helped them in Boca is that they basically used very rough production areas like tents to start producing. Right now what we see in Roberts Road, especially in our flyovers, shout out to the flyovers, is they will use a factory. They will build a complete factory and use that for construction of these starships there. So that means we are probably a few months away of the construction finishing. And and then we basically are at the point where you're like, okay, we now start to produce rings. We now start to produce every single part that is needed for a Starship and a Super Heavy. And even from the start of a construction of a booster to the time where we first see it on a pad, it takes months. Like from the first spotting of parts to the final vehicle on the pad, we are months. And then from a vehicle on the pad to vehicle flight ready, also months. So yeah, I agree with Ian. I wouldn't bet against like hardware, Starship hardware, somewhere at the Cape this year. But I would bet against any serious like static fire or launch testing this year.
Yeah, like if they're not already building rings by the end of the year, then something has really gone wrong. But at the same time, I do not expect to see a finished booster and ship at the Cape by the end of the year. But I mean, then again, they could always bring them in from Boca Chica. I don't know how they would do that, but
my question is, how would they? Would we see similar types of test campaigns like we see at Starbase? Would we see that sort of thing at the Cape, with as busy as the Cape is and the approvals, and you have other launch providers you have to worry about, and we're talking about 39A. Slick 41 is right next door, and that's the Atlas pad. How cool is ULA with them, doing, like they usually run their, it's not called ambient test anymore. What are we calling it now? Pressure test. Pneumatic test, and then the cryo test and stuff. Are they cool with them doing those kinds of tests? I guess what I'm saying is, it seems to me like Boca Chica is the stage where they're going to make sure the system works before they start doing before they even start thinking about flying from the Cape. The Cape is not really for development. The Cape is for operation. I'm sure there will be testing here, but my assumption is that most of these things are going to be completed in Boca Chica first before they start putting starships on pads here.
Yeah, like the benefit of Boca Chica that we've seen is that it's just SpaceX. SpaceX doesn't need to worry about ULA or Northrop Grumman or Blue Origin working because it's just them there. And now, actually, conversely, on the other hand, the Cape is really beneficial. And this actually ties into a question I saw in chat. SpaceX already has approval to launch Starship at the Cape. They had that in 2019. Now, the reason that they had that much quicker than Boca Chica is because the Cape is an established launch site. It's been there for decades. NASA and the FAA are absolutely fluent in how Cape Canaveral works. Oh, Michael said only environmental approval. Okay. So they don't have full launch approval, but they're partway there. But the Cape Canaveral's it's been there for decades. Saturn V has launched from Pad 39A, so they already have sort of a baseline for a big vehicle launching. So they're not starting from zero like they are at Boca Chica. So I could see... I can't really. I was about to say I could see them launching from the Cape first, but not really. That would be a serious problem if they had to launch from the Cape first. But
I think it comes down to if it's Fonzie or ice. Like,
yeah, if it's ice
if it's ice, it's the Cape.
Yeah,
then the Cape will launch first.
And I'm wondering kind of because the expansion at Roberts Road has really only begun in the past few months. Like in the past, like say 3 to 4 months, they've gone ham on Roberts Road and building the Starship pad. It's kind of gone from like 0 to 60.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they were kind of like, okay, there's definitely a non-zero chance that we could get an ice here. Like there's always the possibility of getting an ice. So maybe they're saying, okay, let's get this going as soon as possible as sort of a backup plan. So they're not caught red-handed, or they're not caught empty-handed, and they have to start from scratch. Maybe that's it. Again, speculation alarm, but
yeah. Okay, let's see what Overlord Raven says. Do we know if the downcomer on B7 had an issue with pressure in the LOX tank or lack of pressure in the CH4 tank? I think this is back into the speculation zone.
Yeah, we don't know anything. The only indicator was that leaked picture, which I don't even know how that got out there. But yeah, there was a leaked picture that supposedly shows Booster 7's transfer tube, methane transfer tube, crushed. There was All we know is there was pretty much some pressure differential in some way. There was pressure on the outside, or there was no pressure on the inside. So
Right.
that's all we can tell you.
Pressure differentials, man, they'll get you.
There's a video on YouTube that I love of some people hooked up like a vacuum pump to a railway tank car, and they pressurize it to vacuum, and it just implodes. It's so funny. Anyway,
they started to repair Booster 7, by the way. We know that they put parts that supposedly are possibly for the repairs inside Booster 7. So they're at least trying to repair it. But of course, what I worry seeing that picture is, okay, they had... Obviously, there was a very high force event somewhere in there. And the question for me is now, okay, that part is connected to other parts. Is it only this single part, or does this affect the whole structure in the end? So only speculation again, but that was my worry, because sometimes these shock events influence multiple parts.
Yeah, but it does seem like they're trying to fix. Actually, I'll just read this question here. Flawed perspective saying, hoping you can explain the potential repairs to B7. They have a lot of time. They've spent a lot of time on it with cherry pickers for days. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like trying. They don't want to toss it just yet.
yeah, I mean, you already have it built, so why not try to repair it? But with something that delicate and you're having to literally assemble it by hand inside, how far are you going to get?
Yeah.
It could also be an exercise. They could also just want to repair it as an exercise to learn how to repair these and maybe train some workers.
Exactly.
It could be ruled out as a flight hardware at this point completely, but still, you maybe want to examine it, try to repair it, and maybe even perform, pressure test or something on it, and see how the repairs went.
Yeah, because at some point, like, it's going to be worth it to just, they're going to have to do some repairs on these vehicles after they fly for tens or dozens of times. So, yeah, why not practice to see how you can do that? It would be a good test article.
Okay, let's see. Dave W. How is the spreadsheet data coming along, Adrian? I think talking about the new opportunities for data with McGregor.
There's one. I can tell you that. I already started to at least log the test, because at first you don't have any interesting data yet, because it's just new. You need to at first collect a lot of data and then start to see maybe patterns and maybe see stuff. But at first it's more getting data in, tracking averages, looking at what they test, and yeah. It's fun. I love that I have some tests to track again. So,
have you made a spreadsheet for like the orbital pad?
No, because yes. Did we have a static fire on that? Because if we had.
There's been no static fire on the orbital pad.
Okay, then no.
Gotcha.
Because cryotests in the end are only like valve tracking, so
there's no T0.
Yeah.
Let's see. I accidentally threw the wrong question up there, but Dave W, I got yours up there, and then Nick W saying, how are the Starship flaps powered?
Last we heard, Tesla motors. So I don't know what kind of motors. Like, Tesla produces like 5 different kinds of motors. So we don't really know which ones, but probably from the Model 3 or Model Y. But yeah, the flaps are driven by Tesla motors.
All right. See, I think. I mean, we're basically there at it's 4:30 right now, and that's it. That's all that I've got queued for Starship. But let's go clear this super chat queue. Hamster Space Nerd, thank you very much. Hashtag DOS Coffee Fund. I'm sure he appreciates that. Let's see, Frame Rick saying bets from the NASA spaceflight team. Starship orbital flight in 2022 or 2023?
I don't know.
My heart says Oh, sorry, get it.
No. I was just say hopefully 2022, but you go.
I think right now I would bet on Q4 2020. Like if somebody would say, okay, you have to put in a time now that you think is the most likely one, I would say Q4 2022. However, we are basically, I think we are basically one explosion, one major malfunction, or one big delay away from getting into 2023. That's my personal feeling about the situation right now.
Yeah, if there's an ice, if a booster goes SN4 on the orbital pad, anything like that, we are immediately out of 2022. So.
Yeah, I usually an eternal optimist, but we are getting very close to the middle of the year, and it's making it less and less likely that we'll see it this year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, y'all. You know, I want to.
Yep, I was realizing like a few minutes ago, I'm like, I really miss just the excitement of the Starship test launch days. Just like, is it going? Is it going? Oh, the methane vent or whatever, something like that. I don't remember the exact countdown, but like, oh, recondensers on. That means something big's happening. Just like the excitement of just like every little milestone, just like, oh, we're at T-minus 10 now.
Yep.
That was just
and
so
that's
much
the cool
fun.
thing about McGregor Live now. We can finally see tests again. I love this so much that we can see Raptors firing again on a daily basis. How cool is that?
And it's cool because every Raptor that you see test, or every Raptor that we see come into Boca Chica goes through McGregor. So from this point onward, if we see like any Raptors arrive in Boca Chica, or we could say, we saw those in McGregor. You know? So all aspects.
Let's see, Musical Wolves saying, will SpaceX make a Lego Starship? Of course. I'm surprised that's even a question. Overlord Raven, if they use B7 as a pathfinder for repair, do you think they will do pressure tests on it?
Yes.
I could see it,
yeah.
If Axiom doing pressure tests, and if the pressure tests go perfectly, maybe like a basic cryogenic proof test, putting a little bit in there. But that might be getting a little too close to danger.
Don't want to destroy your pet.
Yeah, especially when you just finished it.
And then Benjamin Beaumont saying, was it a mistake for SpaceX to switch development to Boca Chica from the Cape? And why didn't SpaceX start their Cape development at Roberts Road?
Well,
I mean,
at that point, Roberts Road wasn't really a thing. There was no Hangar X. It was just like a plot of wetland that SpaceX had just acquired. So they were doing it out of like an old metalworking factory in Cocoa, Florida. But they moved it to Boca Chica just because having two separate teams is kind of like fighting against yourself. So they combined all their efforts and sent them to Boca Chica because, like we said, at Boca Chica, they don't need to work around other launch providers. They don't need to work around NASA. They don't need to... It's kind of relatively in the middle of nowhere, so they don't really have to worry about that much stuff happening. They can work as they please, expand and buy more land as they please, because the production site now is huge.
Yeah.
So Boca Chica is really their R&D site, just their development site.
Right. All right, and then we have just a few more questions I want to touch on since we're not in a huge hurry. Harmony 6 asking, is there any there and back again talk? What are they talking about?
You want to take it, Adrian?
Rocket Lab.
Oh yeah, we should probably mention that there might be a reusable first stage entering the the operational phase soon.
Yeah.
With Rocket Lab, they are getting ready for the first helicopter catch on their next mission, which at this point should have happened already, but they scrapped it.
I was really hoping.
Delayed it.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to happen before we did this show.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, but very exciting though, because we saw before, I think 2 or 3 times, a booster splashdown recovery just to test like the parachutes and like surviving reentry, and they've been coming back in decent shape. I think Rocket Lab's even reflown some parts that they've recovered. But this is the all-up test. They're not going to let it splash down in the ocean because salt water is very corrosive to delicate electronics. So they're going to catch it midair with a helicopter, and this is the first ever time they're attempting it. And they're calling this mission, I love it as a Lord of the Rings fan, There and Back Again, A Rocket's Tale. Because it's a play on the
Hobbit.
Yeah, the Hobbit. There and Back Again, A
Hobbit,
Hobbit's Tale. And it's from New Zealand too, so even more appropriate. But Love it.
And actually, the reason this keeps getting delayed, and they even tweeted something like this, like that they aren't usually this skittish with the weather, but with this particular mission and their first actual catch attempt, they're trying to improve their odds of success, basically, with this catch. So they're kind of waiting for just the perfect weather. There's been a lot of these days that they probably could have gone ahead and launched. But with them trying to do their first actual catch attempt, they're looking for pristine weather so that they can eliminate as many variables as possible and hopefully succeed in the catch.
Yep.
Okay, Brian had a question. Is Dragon XL canceled? Haven't heard anything in a while. Thanks.
I don't think it's cancelled as of right now.
Yeah,
It's just not in the phase since the hardware that will use Dragon XL is not even close to being launched. There's no need to talk about it right now.
I'm sure that behind some door in Hawthorne, I'm sure there's people working on it, or maybe it's just a CAD drawing or something. But I'm sure it's being developed. It's just not worth talking about at this point. It's meant to be cargo supply for the gateway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean there's not much gateway talk either. So until Artemis gets up and going and SLS is flying, it's all sort of a moot point. It's all years away until SLS is flying.
Yeah, like Gateway is several years away at this point, so there's really no need to start building Dragon XL. And even then, like the first mission to Gateway is going to be Artemis 4, which is 2026 at best.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not really too much of a need for a cargo resupply mission to a station that doesn't exist that we won't need to get to till 2026.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, the old name for this station was so much better. I love Lopji.
Lopji. Yeah, it's great. Has a nice ring to it. Megan M. Megan M. saying, how likely is it that the Falcon Heavy Psyche launch on August 1 keeps its launch date? Do I sense that someone is planning a trip around this date?
Maybe.
That person and half the NSF Discord server. It's so crazy because this launch basically has to go in that time frame because it launched on a very it has to go in that time frame. So it basically now is becoming the number one launch to go to Florida to watch a launch.
Oh boy.
I feel like everybody I know is like planning, okay, I will be for that launch.
I'm buying my plane tickets in the next few days.
Nice.
I'm so excited. It's going to be an RTLS mission launching a very cool probe on a Falcon Heavy. I'm going to be first ever Florida rocket launch. Yeah,
that's awesome. I was going to say, and we did see the center core at McGregor, did we not?
We
did. Booster 1074 Psyche Center Core is on the stand right now.
Is it still? I thought they took it. Maybe
as of like yesterday or 2 days ago, it was.
All right. Well, there you go. And it's using used boosters, isn't it? Side boosters? Or do we know?
No, I don't think it's using used boosters. I think it's using new boosters, but then these boosters are going to be reused for your Europa Clipper in 2 years. They will be expended there.
Okay. All right. Oh man, fully expendable Falcon Heavy. Oh.
For Europa Clipper. That's going to be cool though to see.
Yeah.
But,
I'm totally excited about Europa Clipper.
Oh, it's so cool.
And then we'll just hit this last question real easily before we head out the door. Why are all the JWST picks red?
I answered this in chat for the person.
Okay.
I don't know exactly why, but my best guess would be they're only doing quick tests of these cameras. Now, the cameras have several filters that you can kind of pan through, but I would assume it would just be easiest and quickest just to use a single filter. And because black and white is kind of boring, I guess they just chose red for the color. Now, this is infrared, so that's not actually what it would look like. You wouldn't see a red star because we can't see infrared, but they use false color images. So they assign colors to different frequencies of light.
Right. Well, there you go. Thank you for that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And before we head out the door, we have to say a big thank you to our members that make all of this stuff happen. If you are thinking about becoming a member, I would suggest Capcom and above, because that will give you access to the Discord. Of course, below that, I think you get like emojis and stuff like that. But we definitely could not do what we do without the members. There used to be a lot of testing at Starbase, which gave us some income. But having the members is just, it's invaluable. I mean, I'm sure there's a value to it, but I don't know what it is. And it helps us pay for robots and people's time and any kind of equipment that we might need. It is the members that make that possible. So we definitely want to thank all of you for supporting us. And with that, I've been your host, Stephen Marr, and joining me this week was Ian. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. This was a fun show.
And Adrian Beil over here.
Thanks for having me, and also shoutouts to our chat mods who are always there to have our back in chat.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
keeping it friendly out there. Well, yes, thank you for joining us, and we'll see y'all later in the week for another launch, and next weekend for NSF Live. Thank you.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis. Water towers can fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Fighting outside feed off. Bring in, feed off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.